Russian state television have issued a brazen warning that Moscow could wipe out Britain with a nuclear tsunami in retaliation for supporting Ukraine, declaring there would be no survivors.
In Britain, they seem to be rambling. Why do they threaten vast Russia with nuclear weapons while they are only a small island? Why do they play games? Another option is to plunge Britain into the depths of the sea using Russian underwater robotic drone Poseidon. The explosion of this torpedo close to Britain's shores will raise a giant wave, a tsunami up to 500 meters. This tidal wave is also a carrier of extremely high doses of radiation. Surging over Britain, it will turn what is left of them into radioactive desert.
Well, retired four-star general and former Vice Chief of Staff of the US Army, General Jack Keane, joins me, as does Tobias Ellwood, Conservative MP and former Defence Minister. Welcome to both of you. General Keane, first of all, great honour to have you on the show. Thank you very much for joining Piers Morgan Uncensored. When you hear that kind of rhetoric from the Russians, and we're hearing more and more of this now, it is pretty sobering listening, isn't it? It's frankly quite terrifying to many people. When I interviewed President Trump earlier this week, he felt that America in particular should be using more bellicose rhetoric back, reminding them, the Russians, that America has just as many nukes as they do. What is your view?
Well, the fact is we have a very effective strategic deterrence about the kind of warfare that's being threatened here, which is global nuclear warfare, and that kind of language is absolutely horrendous and certainly outrageous to do that. I don't think we have to walk up the nuclear escalation with them, but we remind them that there is a significant strategic deterrence here among the United States, Britain, and France, and certainly the destruction of their entire country and population is what they're putting at risk here. I think they clearly understand that. I think this is mostly trying to rattle your population as well as mine and also impact our leaders. I think what's really troubling to them is the unanimity that the EU and NATO has really defined here, not just in getting better sanctions and improved sanctions, but most significantly is the arms and ammunition that we're providing to the Ukrainians. And certainly the backdrop here, Piers, is the fact that the Russians have largely been failing. And even in this much smaller offensive that they're conducting right now, they haven't made much gains. And last 24, 36 hours, they haven't been doing much of anything. So, yes, there is saber rattling going on here for sure. Now, the issue with a tactical nuclear weapon, I think that gives us all a little bit more concern that something like that could be used. I really believe the Biden administration could be much stronger about what our response should be here, both publicly and privately. And I will say this, I do think that some of this rattling is going on, particularly as it concerns the Biden administration, Piers, because the Biden administration set the tone here very early on. March 21, 70,000 troops show up on the Ukraine border 60 days into the Biden administration's reign, right after the inauguration. It's no accident. I'm absolutely convinced Putin is doing that to test this administration, which he believed would be weak, and there's an opportunity.
Okay.
The Trump administration had a scheduled deployment of arms and munitions in March of that year planned. Biden administration did not execute it and publicly stated the reason. Yeah. They did not want to provoke Putin.
Yeah, I mean, Tobias Ellwood, I felt...
Let
me bring in Tobias Ellwood, General Keane, if I may. Tobias Ellwood, I mean, I felt that one of the things that may have empowered Vladimir Putin to go into Ukraine, and President Trump said the same thing, was the very cack-handed, if not catastrophic, withdrawal of forces from Afghanistan. That looked like it was America in a form of surrender. What did you think of that? What do you think of where we are with this war? And actually, what does defeat look like now for Putin?
Well, these are all great questions. Firstly, good to see General Keane. Pleased to share a platform with him. But yes, I think Putin has seen that over 30 years, in fact, the West has become quite timid. And our humiliation in departing from Afghanistan, I think, was the icing on the cake. That was the moment that he intended to strike. And we need to wake up that we are actually witnessing a turning point in our history. This isn't just about Ukraine. This is much, much bigger. This is about Putin taking advantage of complacency over 30 years as we've withdrawn back on our military capabilities. Putin is very much now alignment with President Xi, with China and Russia forming an axis and leveraging our timidity. What we're seeing at the moment, though, is an abysmal invasion, as General Keane just implied. In contrast, incredible resilience and heroism from the Ukrainian forces themselves. But we haven't leveraged that. You know, Russia's ineptitude caught the West off guard. Remember, the US even offered to Zelensky a helicopter flight out. That's how they thought, how competent they thought Russian forces would be. But here we are, Ukraine doing an incredible job, Russia having to back away from Kiev, move around to Donbass. That is the moment when they're regrouping, rearming, they're starting to redeploy. That's when you launch a counterattack. But where is the West? Where is NATO to leverage that? The big question I pose to the West, indeed to Britain and the United States, is what is our objective? What are we trying to achieve in Ukraine? Is it to support Ukrainians to push Russia completely out of mainland Ukraine? Or are we content with some form of stalemate occurring over Donbass? We need to clarify exactly what our strategic objective is.
Okay, I mean, look, these are good questions. Let me ask General Keane those questions. What do you think the West's objective is right now? And let me ask you also, General Keane, what is defeat for Putin and what is victory now, do we think?
Well, first of all, I think we're very ambiguous about what our intent there is. We started out by just arming the Ukrainians, certainly, to likely deal with an insurgency because most people felt the regime was going to be collapsed. And then certainly the Ukrainians responded very positively, Russians responded very incompetently, and huge opportunity arose. It took the Biden administration far too long to make that transition and get them the weapons they needed. And finally, we're there. We are clearly doing that. I think the meeting that was held in Ramstein, where 40 nations showed up, 14 of them not European, with Secretary of Defense Alston and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the United States, Milley, that is significant. And what we have to do is continue that. In terms of the objective was never clear from the beginning, but now it has come much more into focus. The Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, others in the administration, even the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, is talking about victory here, defeating the Russian military inside of Ukraine, which is, I believe, should be our objective. It should have been our objective and unequivocally, clearly stated from the beginning. And it's certainly, when you have ambiguity like that, it actually leverages our enemy. Russia, to be sure, because they're not certain about what we're driving towards. And that's why I think they've been surprised by the level of effort recently. I think there still is opportunity here for that objective to be achieved. And we got to double down and continue the robust support that we're providing the Ukrainians, plus the moral support that they need as well.
General Keane, great to talk to you. Tobias Ellwood, thank you very much too. Really appreciate it.